Hey there, everyone. Welcome to A Slice of Life with Kellie and John. And today with America Young. We're very excited. She's an amazing woman. I read your bio and I said, she's a superhero. You've done so much, and you've done so much for women and humanity. And, I just can't wait to share all your story with our guests. And I was very excited to get to talk to you and learn more about you. How did you, so you're in the film business, you're now a director. You were at one time a big time stunt coordinator.
I was a stunt coordinator. Yeah.
Okay. And
I don't know about big time, but yes, I did do, I was a stunt coordinator.
well, from what I read, it looks pretty big time to me.
Why don't you tell us, start there. Why don't you tell us what you did that Kellie believes is big time? Yeah.
Okay. I started doing stunt coordinating for music videos. So I did stunt coordinating for Katy Perry, Natasha Bedingfield, Chris Cornell, Kanye West. I stunt coordinated all their music, not all of their music videos, but I stunt coordinated music videos for them. And then that grew into, I started off stunting, which then became stunt coordinating. And then I started doing features. And then from features, I started stunt coordinating those features, which then became second unit directing, which then became directing. So that was kind of the...
Well, wait, we don't want to jump. We don't want to get there yet.
Okay.
There's lots that you've done in between that, and we want to talk about that.
Well, and my question is, was that what you set out to do? Did you have a plan? How did you end up even doing stunts?
I mean, I don't think I had a plan. I came out here I actually applied to medical school and got accepted and then decided not to go, and then came out here to get involved in the film industry somehow, some way. I've always wanted to. I've always been a storyteller by heart, even as a kid. And I came out here to act because that's kind of what I had known. I'd done a lot of school plays and commercials as a kid. I actually have an old commercial of myself doing an RC Cola commercial that I just found on VHS that I'm trying to figure out a way to get on digital so that I can share it. And so it's something I've always loved, the film industry and the storytelling aspect of it. And that's how John and I met, is I would do some readings of his screenplays. And I still love acting, but I found the more I was out here, there was so much more that I loved even more. And there's so many different stories, and for each story to be told, sometimes I'm a different part of that storytelling process. So for some stories, I am just the voice of it. For some stories, I'm doing the stunts for it. And for some stories, I'm the director of it. And that was one of the biggest discoveries I made, was that you don't have to be the only, there's so many amazing stories that need to be told, and you can be a different part of the machine to get that story made. I'm currently producing a short film for my friend, who's a phenomenal director, and the story she has is great, So I didn't really have a plan when I came out here. My plan was to spend a year or two out here and then get knocked on my butt and sent home. I did get knocked on my butt a few times, sometimes literally. But I never went back. I loved it too much, and I found too many things that I loved doing. And so how I got into stunts is I started taking martial arts for self-defense when I first got out here. And the guy I trained under was extreme. You guys know Cobra Kai, right? I basically trained under that guy.
I've heard of him.
Yeah. So it was pretty intense, and it was pretty crazy. And I knew somebody who was doing a traveling stunt show, and he had seen me fighting, and he was like, "Oh, you should do this." And I had never done anything like stunts or anything like that before, but I tried it, and I learned a ton, and I loved it. And so then that ended up, some of the best things that happened in my life were me jumping in the deep end and learning how to swim really fast. And that was one of those cases where I trusted the person, Lee Whitaker was his name, who was like, "You should try this." And I learned, and I studied, and I worked hard, and I realized it was something I really liked, even though it scared the crap out of me to try it. I'm so glad I did it.
Well, having a background in martial arts. Okay. So you're in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Right. And so you have now a background in martial arts, because you took self-defense classes. So that would be empowering. And then with the stunts, are you actually doing things, or are you teaching people to do them? or both?
No, I'm actually doing them. I mean, a lot of the times you're teaching if you're a stunt double to an actress, you're kind of teaching them the moves and you're training them as well. But a lot of the times I was doing them. So, okay, so on like the Natasha Bedingfield music video, Pocket Full of Sunshine, I stunt coordinated that, and I also doubled her, which is an unusual choice because we don't look alike at all. So there was teaching her how to do the wire stuff and all for the when she's in the parachute. But then there's also me being in it and doing it as well. Being set on fire and being hit by cars, like all that stuff is stuff that you're actually doing when you're doing the stunts.
I always wondered, like, when you see somebody falling down the stairs, like, what if they told you fall down the stairs? Like, you just fall down the stairs, or is there a way you protect your head, or
yeah, there's a way to do it in which you can get hurt less, but the stairs don't get softer.
It's gonna hurt, right?
Yeah, and the thing is that usually you'll be aware of this now. Usually when it's a woman doing it, she's in an evening gown or a bathing suit, and so there's nowhere to put padding. But if it's a guy doing it, he's in a full suit. So he is padded. It still hurts. It's still crap to go downstairs, no matter how padded you are. But there's definitely a discrepancy. Like I had to stunt double somebody once, and she was escaping from a hospital situation, and she decided that her character would not take the time to grab shoes as she's escaping. And so then I had to double her running barefoot through the woods.
Oh,
and you're just like, oh man, why didn't we think this differently? But yeah, no, it's so what were you saying, John?
Well, one of the things that I always notice when I see scenes where a stunt double or somebody's supposed to be falling down the stairs is how the stunt person works so hard to cover their face as they are falling or when they land, so that their face is away from the camera. So when the actor gets there,
you can cut into it, because if you
have to do that too.
If you see their face, they have to do it again. There's a very high motivation to not see their face.
Can't they, with AI now, can't they do something to, like,
in some of the bigger things they can. I mean, it's expensive still, right? So if you're going to do a car hit, it's worth it because that's a huge stunt and it's a big set piece in the story usually. So like, instead of having Tom Cruise do it, although he does a huge majority of his own stuff, they would have the stunt double do it, and then they would CGI in the face, right? But for something like a stair fall, which is considered a relatively simpler stunt, and it's not like a set piece, it's not something that they would budget a lot of money towards, they're not gonna want to do a face replace on that.
Interesting. Okay. Well, not to get far off that, but you did all this, and then you got into the medium of games.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
A stunt coordinator I had done a movie with was helping find people for a game and invited me to come audition for it. And I had never done it before, but I had done a lot of theater, and motion capture for games is a very similar physical expression to theater and stunts. It's easier for people to come from theater into motion capture than it is for people to come from like on-camera television into motion capture, because it's a full body expression. It's telling the story with your full body, and especially when I got into it, when the tech wasn't so sensitive and the idle poses, or you have to breathe like this just so they know your character is still alive, right?
Was that when they would have to put all those little balls over you so that it would capture every motion of the body?
Okay. And that's still the way to do it. So you're wearing a spandex suit, and they'll put a ball at each of your joints.
Right.
And then they capture, and you're in a big open space that's got about 150 cameras in it, if they're doing it right. And then that camera grabs the data from the reflective balls. And if you look into the screen that's pulling it in, it's a stick figure and joints, and you see where all the different markers are. And then the computer takes where all the markers are and puts it together into the body of a human, the stick figure, the skeleton. And then you put on basically the skin of the character. And so what's really cool is you can see as you're doing the motion capture, the character that you're playing, they'll throw that skin on, the model of that character on. And so you'll look over and you'll be like for example, I remember getting to work on Halo, and I looked over and there I was in the body of a Spartan. And I also worked on like the Harry Potter game. And so I looked over and I was Hermione. And so it's pretty trippy, especially if you're working on properties of things that you're actually big fans of. You get to actually see the character in person, in action as you're moving, as you're moving and doing your dance move. You're seeing, Harry Potter do the lawnmower. So it's pretty fun.
Okay, so that's what motion capture is. It's when you put on that suit and you got the little balls, and then the film is capturing your movement.
Yeah.
And then they put the cartoon character over top of the movement and it follows it.
Basically, yeah, they put the model or the skin on top of that, and then you also have a camera. It's a whole performance capture. They use the words motion capture, performance capture to kind of mean different things, but it is pretty interchangeable because it's all performance. But there's also a camera that comes out like this, like you wear this helmet, and then there's a camera that comes out like this, and then you have the dots on your face, and it's capturing the movement of your face in sync with, and you're also mic'd because you're saying your lines.
Right.
And so it's in sync with your line so that you've got the whole thing.
So
and
you're saying you're the verbal, you're the voice too?
Sometimes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, sometimes you are, sometimes you're just the body, sometimes you're just the voice, it just depends.
There's a program, I don't use it well. I bought it, called Crazy Talk Animator or something like that. I wonder, you can take a picture of yourself, put it in this program, and then say you want it to skip or jump, or it'll do any motion you want it to do. So I wonder why they don't do something like that, but I guess they want it more realistic.
Oh,
maybe, and it might just be because it has to be an effortless flow, right? Of like going from jumping to skipping, and then it's got to be controlled, right, by somebody. And so when you're playing a video game, there's like in a typical video game, there's cut scenes, which is like a scene from a movie, and then there's the gameplay, and all of that is captured by humans. So you'll do the entire scene like it's a scene from a movie, or you're the person, the poor schmuck who's doing all the running, the skipping, the jumping, the climbing, the crouch runs, the falls, a million falls. How many falls? So many falls. And so you're capturing all of that, and then they're putting that into the engine. And so I think there probably just needs to be a way for it to all be blended together flawlessly as the person is controlling it. So it sounds like it's a similar thing, but it also, each one needs to have its own personality. Each person walks differently. Each character has its own way of walking and talking and running. And so that was a cool thing to get into. That was a Spider-Man game. And since then I've worked on 65 games in different capacities, and I've directed in the video game space. And most recently I was the voice of Batgirl in Gotham Knights. So that was a dream of dreams come true. And I also did some of the motion capture. But the cool thing about video games, it's very similar to movies, but the cool thing about video games is it's like Voltron, right? Like I did the voice and I did some of the motion capture for the scenes. And then there's freaking phenomenal women who came and did the stunts, right? Stuff that I could never do. I am not a bendy, flexible, flippy kind of person. and these people came in and they did all of that, and which was amazing, so like that's what the cool thing about this industry is. If you let go of the ego, is like together we come together and build something even better than we would be on our own.
It's just so funny though that people, who would know that's a job?
I know.
It's like nobody knows all the intricacies of what goes into creating a video game.
No idea. And I'm so mad at my high school guidance teacher for not telling me.
Well, they didn't have this maybe when you were in high school.
Maybe. I mean, that was in high school about 60 years ago, so that makes sense.
So then somewhere along the line, Barbie entered your life.
Yeah.
Or you entered Barbie's life.
I entered Barbie's life.
That's right. Why don't you tell us a little about that before we even go further into all this?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a great question because it naturally segues from the video game. So there was a video game house that I was working with a lot. It's a small industry of people, and you get to know people and you get to love people, and you just keep coming back and they keep having you back. And there was this, there still is, this motion capture place called House of Moves. And they were bidding on a job to do this vlog for Barbie. And they were trying to figure out exactly what they wanted to do with Barbie, and they were trying to do a rebrand and make her more accessible.
What year was this? To give the audience an idea of how long ago this was, because
2014.
Barbie is monstrous, right?
Oh
now.
yeah. Barbie has been around for a very long time.
Yes, but what year are you talking about?
2014.
Okay, 10 years ago. There you go. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so they called me in and they were like, hey, we're going to do this demo. And sometimes they would call me in to do a demo that they're bidding on a job, and they would give me and so I would just do it because I love them and it was fun to hang out with them. And so they brought me in and they're like, we're doing this demo for Barbie. And I've kind of had a tumultuous relationship with Barbies in my life. Like, I loved them as a kid, and then there was the one that came out that said math is hard, and like there's been some issues with Barbie, you don't get to be huge without taking big swings, but there's been some problems. And so but I liked that this was Barbie at 15 doing her first vlog, and so I really leaned into the likable version of her, the more relatable version of her, the version of her I would have liked. I don't know if that's what they meant it to be, but that's what I was going for. So I made her nervous when she talked. She did little fidgets. She snorted when she laughed. She talked about loving science at school and science being her favorite class. She made a Star Wars joke. Like there was a script provided, and then I improvised a little just to give them some more meat to play with. And then a month or two later, I got a call from them, and they said, hey, we got the gig. And I said, that's great. Why are you calling me? And they're like, because we only get it if you come with it. And I guess they had been trying to figure out who she was and what they were going to do with her. And Julia Pister, who was over at Barbie, who was amazing and the real deal, she's incredible. She had been trying to articulate exactly what she wanted. And it wasn't until they saw this test, they went, that's it. That's what we want. And so the two of us were like-minded beings who found each other, and Teal Sperling was part of it, and Rosanna Sun. Like, it was this amazing collaboration of people. And the coolest thing about the motion capture was it's real, and it's these little stutters and the little mistakes that are harder to animate you can do in motion capture, which makes her feel even more real, right? I would stumble over a line and they would purposely keep it. I would have like a weird little nervous, like, oh, and they would keep it. And that would have been something that they would have edited out in animation because it costs more money.
Right.
With motion capture, it doesn't cost more money to do that. And so there was a naturalness to her, even though the look isn't quite as natural, especially when we first starting out, that made her incredibly relatable. And then that and the scripts that Julia wrote, which were amazing. She wrote about depression. She wrote about it, all like distilled down to a bite-sized thing that for kids, right? We wrote a script about how girls apologize too much. We wrote things about mansplaining. We wrote things about lifting each other up. We wrote things about how you're never too young to have a voice, right? And it's intercut with it's balanced with like stupid YouTube challenges, like the stuff that makes a vlogger, like how much stuff can I stick up my nose kind of stuff. Not the most intellectual, but it balanced that out with the more meaningful stuff. And it just changed the brand in the most amazing way. And this is the genius between Julia and her team, and the fact that we would play. And so she would write these phenomenal scripts, and every once in a while she'll be like, and then America just talks about this. And then I would just go off and do stuff.
Wow.
And it was incredible. And so pretty soon they started realizing that was the version of her they wanted to bring into the rest of their content. And so then we've now done Netflix series and Netflix movies, and we've done like a choose your own adventure Netflix interactive thing, which is so much fun. We've done a bunch of different things, and it's been incredible.
Do you think that being out there for all those years and just reestablishing Barbie again. Do you think that caused anybody to come up with an idea with doing a feature film?
I think so. I mean, they've been bouncing around that feature film since I've been involved. They've been trying to get that made, but
Really?
there were so many different scripts and so many different versions. And I've seen interviews in which Margot Robbie or Greta have actually referenced the vlogs. There was I think it was the LA Times like article about it in which they referenced them also. So I think, but I don't think that unless you're 6 years old or a huge Barbie fan already, I don't think they were on anyone's radar. And so they talk about how when Greta showed up at Mattel and they started showing her some of the content that's been done in the last few years, that she went, oh, I realized what the potential could be, and I think that might be why she was interested in coming on, because unless she was going to be given the space to say the stuff she wanted to say about feminism and women and all of that, I don't know that she would have come on, because that's something that's so important to her. And Ann Austin, who's been the executive producer of a lot of the Netflix content, that's also something that's so incredibly empowering to her and so important to her. And so there's so many times where we've had conversations about it, and it's just so great. It's so great that there are so many people who are behind the brand within a money concern, obviously always lingering, but there's so many people within that giant pink Death Star that actually truly love girls and women and kids of any kind of gender. And so we're careful about the language we use, so we're not being exclusive, and it's really cool. Everyone I've met with and worked with over there has just warmed my heart. I think I was a little cynical beforehand.
Okay.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
somewhere along the line, always because I know America, and she has so much to say, and I just want to try to get it all in.
Love you, John.
And you said, I think I'll direct.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, but wait, we got to go back to Barbie because I have to make a comment.
Go
So
ahead.
I loved my Barbies as a kid. I didn't play with baby dolls. I was too big for that. I had my Barbies and loved them. And I made them clothes out of my clothes. I cut my clothes up. I learned how to sew, little hand.
Are you
sew.
kidding? That's
And I made them
amazing.
clothes out of my clothes. So the funny thing is I have to tell you here in the background, these are my fairy dolls. You can see a couple of them. I call them my Barbies with wings. And even though I'm, a grown woman, I still love my Barbies.
Yeah.
I have a collection of 72 fairies. And I call them my Barbies with wings. So anyway, I had to say that. I had to get that in there because Barbie's so iconic for little girls. And as we've evolved and wanted to be, just more evolved, she's come along with us.
She has. And to your point, exactly to your point, before her, the only dolls for little girls were babies.
Yeah.
The only dolls out there were to train little girls how to be mothers. And there was no other option, right? And so Barbie broke through that glass ceiling in that regard because she could be an astronaut. She could be a flight attendant. She could be it's the first time that existed. And then a lot of other dolls have tried to follow, but she continues. Sometimes there's been missteps, but she continues to try to push that envelope and be inspirational. And I think most of the time she is. I mean, seeing the comments on the vlogs of the little kids, and adults who would watch these things and just be like, for the longest time, I didn't tell anyone I was Barbie because the comments, everyone was like, is that Barbie? Are you real? Are you real, Barbie? And I just didn't want to ruin that illusion for them. It wasn't worth it for me to take credit for it when these little kids were getting so inspired by the stuff that she was saying. Yeah. So I'm thrilled. You still have your Barbies.
Well, and then and actually until not too long ago, about 10 years ago, I had my original Barbies and I shouldn't have gotten rid of them, but I treasured them, but it was just one thing to lug around and as I was moving from here to there. So I got rid of them. But another question about that, has Mattel taken care of you and given you credit? And this is nosy of me. Maybe I shouldn't, but I'm just curious. That's something that I would be thinking of. She changed everything for Barbie.
Well, we all did though, and I'm not just saying this because this is a public format in which Mattel might see me say the answer. It has genuinely been a group thing. It has genuinely been one of those things where we all heard each other and supported each other and were excited by each other's ideas. If I were the only one saying it, it wouldn't have happened. You know, I wasn't in Mattel. I wasn't in all the meetings. Like the amount of work that goes into managing this one woman's brand, which has like the highest recognition brand of, it's like up there with like Coca-Cola and the Bible, right? Yeah. So there, none of this would have happened without everyone at Mattel being incredibly supportive and on the same page and like, yes, and the relationship continues. I'm still working with them. I still admire the hell out of everyone I'm working with. Every once in a while, and here's the other thing, here's a perfect example is there's times where I'll go, I know what you're trying to say with this line, but I'm really concerned it'll come off this way. And every single person I've worked with over there has gone, oh crap, you're right. Yeah, let's change that. Right? I mean, it's a true testament to them and what their desire is for the brand. And I went in cynical. I went in thinking they're just doing this for the money. They're just doing it to save their IP. And every single person I've dealt with has proved me wrong, which I love. So yes, we have a great working relationship.
Okay, I just want to make sure you're getting the credit you deserve because I think that's awesome, and that Barbie has evolved and become a modern woman.
Yeah, and I'm so proud of the work. It's some of the stuff I'm most proud of being part of. So it's not even, I mean, yeah, I guess credit's always nice, right? But it's not even just about that. It's also about the fact that I got to be a part of it, and they continue to allow me to be a part of it because we work so well together. So yeah, let's.
And I don't want to, you know, I'm happy that Mattel is still making Barbie, so I don't want to irritate them by asking these nosy questions. But I'm just curious because, you know, you want to make sure everybody's taken care of who's contributing to a project. And sometimes that doesn't always.
I appreciate you getting defensive for me.
Looking out for you.
I know, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So, okay.
Okay, so let's move on. So then, somewhere along the line, you got the opportunity to direct.
Yeah.
You obviously did it well because now you are a professional, you know,
I'm a professional director.
A professional director.
PGA, you guys.
We're the Directors Guild.
Yeah, it's awesome. Long before I was given the opportunity to direct, I had to force my way into that opportunity kicking and screaming. So I just started making stuff. My friend Faye trusted me to direct her music video, which was one of the first things like I fully felt there's a lot of times you show up on a set as the stunt coordinator and the director does not actually know what they're doing. They have somehow talked their way into this position. Or they have a temper tantrum and storm off, and then the rest of the crew is like,
what are we doing?
What are we gonna do? Yeah. And so I had directed at those points in time, unofficially, not realizing I was really doing it. In my mind, I was just trying to get us through the day. But the first time that I really officially, and then there were times where I'd be producing something and the director didn't really know what they were doing. And I was like, well, you know, there's stuff like that was happening. But the first time that I officially had the title director was when my friend Faye trusted me to direct her music video, which scared the crap out of me because I had grown up without a television. I did not grow up with MTV or music videos or anything like that. I didn't really know. So I just started binging music videos and trying to figure out like exactly how to make this and how to make sure I make this the best possible thing for her on the budget that we had. And then I realized how much I loved it. I mean, I realized how much I loved it, and then I realized people would come up to me and be like, "How long have you been doing this? You're one of the best ones we have worked with in a while." And I'm like, "Oh, wait, what?" And I'm sure they say that to all the directors because they're trying to get more work. I'm aware of how the system works. I didn't get too carried away, but it did feel good and it did feel right. So then I just started making stuff, and I just made because I started going off on interviews to direct with to interview for other direction jobs. And the saying that kept coming up in my head as I was realizing like who I would lose the jobs out to and how I would lose out the jobs is there's a saying that men are hired on potential and women are hired on accomplishment. And that was something that I kept noticing because they would be like, yeah, but you've never blank. and then they would go and hire a guy who had never blanked
Right.
either, but he was a guy,
Right.
right?
They believed he would be able to.
They believed he would be able to, but they didn't. And I also realized, which is the segue that takes us to the Tremere Project. I also realized I had never seen a woman at all at this point direct. And so I wondered if I had the same inherent bias of whether a woman could blank, because I had never seen any woman do anything in that position. And so that was also ultimately why I started the Tremere Project and started working in that space. And we can come back to that. But, you know, the hair that broke the camel's back for me is having come from stunts, meeting on a movie that was very stunt heavy. And I did my pitch and they're like, oh my God, we love your choice of colors. We love your story. We love the fact that you relate so much to the characters. It's 3 women, blah, blah, blah. They're like, yeah, but have you ever directed stunts? And I went, oh, wait a second. Here's where I shine. That's where I come from. I got this. And they're like, yeah, but you haven't directed it. And I went, do you not know what stunt coordinating is? Because that's pretty much the same thing. And they're like, it's not the same. It is the same. But it's an argument, right? I didn't get the job. The guy who got the job had never done anything with action, right? So that was the moment where I realized, okay, I'm never going to get a job until I've done it. So I just went off and started making every single type of short I could. Some of them were horrible and I'll never show anyone. Some of them cost me pennies and they're awful. And some of them I'm really, really proud of. But I went off and I made an action short because now apparently I had to prove that I could do that. And I went off and did a drama and I went off and did sci-fi with visual effects because that's another thing women don't know how to do. I don't know if you guys knew that. And I went off and made a comedy because women also don't do comedy. And I went off and made all these different shorts as much as I possibly could so that any single job I'd ever be on, they'd be like, yeah, but have you ever? And I'd be like, yes, I have.
Good. Yeah.
Right. And I was lucky to be in a position where I was working and still doing all the stunt stuff so that I had a little bit of extra cash to be able to pull this off, or I had the connections and the friends would be willing to show up and do this stuff, you know, and it for nothing or for very little. But that's how. So then when I applied to the Warner Brothers program, I had a bunch of different samples that I could use to apply to that program with the Warner Brothers TV directing program. And that's how I got into television. But at that point I had already directed, you know, one feature. And then I was directing my second feature while I was in the program.
Well, talking about features, you know, let's talk about budgets, like low budget versus high budget. What do you like? What don't you like?
Okay. So my first feature, The Concessionaires Must Die. I'm really proud of it. The name is hard to say and even harder to spell, but I'm very proud of it. You can see it. You can find it on Amazon and Tubi and all of that. It was a very small budget. It was a micro budget. It was done with a lot of favors. And I've done huge budgets now at this point, the television budgets, like massive Netflix type budgets. And the thing is that it's kind of all the same. You have to be kind of more creative, I find, with the lower budgets. I feel like there's a lot more creativity and a lot more thinking out the box, but it all comes down to the team you're with and who you end up hiring and making sure it's somebody that you can trust and making sure that it's somebody who trusts you. That's just as important as you trusting them. But the truth of the matter is that sometimes on the bigger budgets, you can just throw money at the problem to make it go away. And then you don't end up with the same creativity that you would have when you're just like, oh, I don't have that location. Let's do it over there. And let's bring this up. And, you know, and so I really love, you learn something different working on each individual budget. But the funny thing that I always find it interesting when they're like, oh, you come from indie, but do you think you could handle a bigger budget? And the truth of the matter is I don't think someone from a bigger budget could handle it. I definitely think an indie person could handle having more money, you know? Right. They have to be smart about where they spent it, but if they have been surviving in the indie world, you're really not going to get somebody who's smarter with money than that person.
Yep.
You know, because they've known exactly how to make sure every single penny ends up on screen and where and how to cut your corners.
Okay.
What did you do for Netflix?
Obliterated, a TV show called Obliterated.
Wow. And what are some other projects that you've done that you would be proud to?
Obliterated was one of them that was really fun. It's definitely not for kids. I also did Gotham Knights on the CW. So weirdly enough, I did Gotham Knights, the video game, as Batgirl, and then I did Gotham Knights, the TV show, as the director. And that show is gorgeous and beautiful and so thoughtfully written out. And my cinematographer, actually, for my episode, is nominated for an award for his work on the show, alongside huge cinematographers for huge shows. So I'm really proud of him for that. The Horror of Dolores Roach is something I did for Amazon. It's really messed up, but I'm really proud of what we did with it creatively. It's cannibalism in empanadas. It's Sweeney Todd, but with empanadas.
Oh, wow.
It's messed up. It's seriously messed up.
Is that a log line? Is that?
Should be. It's dark, man, but it's good. It's darkly funny, and it's the main actors on that were just exquisite. And then I directed a pilot for Apple called Surfside Girls, which is girls' adventure with pirates, and it's so much fun. It's this one right here.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just real quick, and again for the audience, of all those that you've done, who's the actor, female, male, female, doesn't matter, that you've worked with, that you were impressed that you were working with?
Lori Petty, I was very excited to work with. Virginia Madsen, I was very excited to work with. That was both Unobliterated. I'm trying to think of. I really liked the show Supernatural. And so I got to work with two of the main cast from Supernatural on two different shows, and I really enjoyed that. There were actors I was excited to work with when I met them and saw what they were capable of, and then there were actors that I had been an admirer of their work for a very long time. And so getting to work with Dan Lauria, getting to work with him was wonderful. Growing up with him on the Wonder Years.
Funny, we just did an interview before this.
Yeah, with Shirley Jordan. She mentioned him.
Jordan, I'm sure you've done readings with her for me, but she actually was inspired to get into acting because of Dan Lauria. They had been friends for years.
I didn't know that.
He was an icon in the community. I used to go to his readings in Westwood. He had play readings in Westwood, and I used to go and sit in on those. He just did so much for the community.
Yeah, he's so great. I mean, there he is. He's right there.
Okay.
He's right there, and like the conversations that I would have with him about the old time of making. He used to have movie nights at his house, where he'd just come and he'd make comments on the older movies. It was always he's incredible. But then at the same time, with my daughter, he was just a big old mush, and he was so good with her. And he's amazing. Any opportunity I can ever try to slip him into something, I try to do that. Who else? I don't know. That's a great question. I'm sure I'm going to think of someone as soon as
you gave us quite a few. Let's see.
Well, my question about directing, because I've been on many movie sets and TV sets, and I know what the actor does. I know what the editor does. I know, the producer puts up the money and kind of oversees and hires everyone. Like, if you were hired as a director, if, let's say somebody hired me and they said, Kelly, I want you to direct my movie. So the script is written. What do you do? Like, what does the director actually do?
Okay. That's a good question. Okay, so you get the script, and it depends if it's television or movies. The director's roles have a lot of overlap, but they're also different depending on the format that you're in. If you're directing in television, the script is kind of untouchable. That you don't really have, it is what it is, and you can make suggestions and you can say, hey, I don't know that this logically makes sense or whatever, but because you're part of a whole and because you have no idea where the show is headed, and the writers do, it's a little bit harder to change a script and make it more malleable because there's so many different balls that they have up in the air with all their different storylines and all their different characters. Whereas if you come in on a feature and someone sends you a script, you're like, I love the script, but I really think this story arc needs to be stronger. it will be changed, right? I really like the script, but can we set it in New Orleans instead of here because of the mood and the setting and the creepiness or whatever? Then that's a whole conversation that can happen. In a television show, you're going where they're shooting it. You know, you get to choose the locations for your specific scenes that are in your episode, but you're going to be in the same town. It's going to have the same look that was set up by the pilot director.
Okay, so you pick the location. Do you pick the actors?
You come sometimes. So you come
casting people?
Yeah, there's casting people who help you find them. You know, if you're coming into a TV show, a lot of the regulars are set. But the first thing you do is once you've locked in your script, whether you're TV or director, is you go through and you figure out what the tone of the show is. You figure out what the tone of the movie is. Is it a comedy? Is it a genre? Is it how do you want to show that visually? And you break it down and you say, okay, in this scene, for example, they're using a pen, and that pen plays into a really important metaphor later on in the scene, right? Because it ends up becoming a pen is versus a sword is mightier. I don't know, I'm making this up as I go, but then you think about, okay, what does that pen look like, right? So like the director tends to oversee every single department from the prop. So then you would go to your prop department and you go, this is a really important prop. I really want this to be stronger than a sword metaphor, blah, 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 blah. I'm thinking maybe metallic. I'm thinking maybe there's like a design or decal. And then props, and hopefully your department heads are excellent, and they usually are, will go off and use their cool minds and come back with like 5 different options for you. And you go, oh, I love it. Let's go with this one, right? So then you go and you do the same thing with your DP. You say this scene, a lot of it, it's all about how the different ways you tell the story. With the DP, you would say, okay, this scene, I need to feel claustrophobic. I need to feel confusion. I need to feel this. I'm thinking tighter scenes and blah, blah, blah. And you go into
the DP is director of photography, correct?
Yeah,
they're the one with the camera, and the
cinematographer, and they're the ones who oversee the whole camera department. Sometimes they camera op, usually not. Usually they're the ones who set the lighting and they wrangle their gaffer and their electric and their camera operators, but they're your department head that you talk to. And you explain and you talk out the scenes and you figure out the blocking and you figure out where you want the camera and how you want the movement to feel. And you have a conversation about what is the camera movement jarring and shaking and moving around a lot, or is it smooth and steady, or is it just locked off? Is it a wide shot to show the entire space of the room, or is it tight in on the eyes to show that what's the internal life of the actor or whatever? So then that's that, and then you go to the wardrobe, and you do this with every single of your department heads. So there's props, there's wardrobes, there's special effects, there's your DP, there's your actors, and you go through all of this with your actors. This particular scene, the most important thing that comes across for your character is this reveal. Let's talk about how that's going to be shown. You know, and sometimes it's a discussion. Sometimes the actors already have an amazing idea about it, and sometimes they're completely stymied. I worked on a show where the actress was like, how am I going to handle this? I just got out of the hospital and I'm talking about writing a will, and how do I not make this seem morbid? And like, how do I have that conversation? And I was able to say, well, you know, maybe you feel confident and maybe you feel comfort in knowing your family is provided for. Maybe this is your way of dealing with your fear of death, is to know that no matter what, your family is taken care of. And that's what's giving you comfort. And this is optimistic for you. This is making sure. And she was like, oh my God, that's amazing. You know, like that's and you know, that based that on my mom, that's how she handles things. So like but you go to every single department and you figure out that make sure everybody's all aligned on one common path. And if you're smart, you know that the people that you're working with are excellent and that you don't micromanage, and you say, I'm thinking about something like this, right? And then see what they come up with. Now, if they completely miss it and they come back with something and you're like, I said a pen, not a pencil, or that's a Sharpie, like then you can like shape it a little bit more. But some of the coolest things have come from me saying, this is the feeling, this is the metaphor, this is the idea. And then that person coming back and going, well, what do you think about this? And then you're just like, oh, it's so good. Because they think about just their job 24 hours a day. You have to think about everybody else's. And so to trust them to think about just their job and to ask their opinion and let them weigh in and make sure you're directing them towards the common goal, that's a big part of it. And then the other part of it is psychology. You know, like I've actually had to go up to people on set sometimes and be like, honey, you're a little crabby. Can I get you a snack?
Wow. Yeah.
Are you doing okay? Because you're snapping at people, and we can't have that. So let's get you a snack, okay? Like there's definitely times where you're using your psychology, or your revert. I've even used reverse psychology. I have to tell you, being a mom has been so useful to directing.
Right. Yeah, I thought, for myself and the audience, like I said, I've been on movie sets. I had the privilege of getting my SAG card on Apollo 13. And
Oh,
one of the actors, his name is Ben, can't remember his last name, kind of cozied up to me. I was an extra. I was hired as an extra, and made me his girlfriend, like at the party scene, the opening scene. And we were talking, and kind of brought me in to the little fold of astronauts. And so there was a scene with Tom Hanks and Kathleen Quinlan and Bill Paxton and this guy that I was supposed to be kind of his girlfriend, and Gary Sinise, I think, wasn't in it. Kevin Bacon and his girl. Like literally, this is the scene. There's like 10 of us, and I'm one of them with these guys. And then Ron Howard is directing us. And it was like how did I get there? I'm like, how did I freaking get here? And watching that set was it was so professional. But I remember one time there was the big party scene that we're all there at the house, and Ron Howard walks through the crowd over to Tom Hanks and just has a little conversation with him instead of yelling, "Hey, Tom, can you?" And I thought that was so classy of him and respectful to have this little chat with Tom Hanks to walk through the whole crowd. And then we have to wait for him to walk by. So, it took longer because it was a big place. And then when we were all leaving at the end of the day, tons of extras, the main actors, the main actors go first and then all the extras. And Ron Howard stood at the door until every person was gone and was pretending like it was his party and said, "Bye, thanks for coming. Thank you." Like, he's in my heart, that
I've heard he's amazing. I've heard that he is respectful and classy, and I've worked with directors, especially when I was doing stunts, who were not that way at all. But I've heard that Howard is incredible. And the interesting thing is that a lot of what I just described all happens in prep, so you wouldn't even have seen that on set. Yeah. Right. By the time you've gotten to set, all of the stuff that I just mentioned is dialed in. And so on set, usually what you see is the director talking to the actors and maybe having a conversation with the DP, and that's it, because everything else is already in play.
That's why I asked, because they always make such a big deal about the director and winning the director Oscar, and like that's the prize, the biggest prize. And I always thought they must do more than just say, "Can you move over there?" Just directing.
That is part of
more
it.
than that. But now I'm like, I have even more respect, because if they're, in charge of every little thing that happens, that's huge.
Every little thing you see on camera, they helped shape and put in that direction. Some are more controlling than others. Some are more specific than others. It really depends on who you're working with. But yeah, it's a big thing. And then they're the ones who shape it in the edit and post also. So they're with it all the way through. And in post is really a long, lonely place to be. So, and in post, they're shaping the pace of the edit, right, with the editor, and they lock the cut, and then they're helping with we're picking the music, and then they're color correcting it, and then they're there for the VFX and signing off on I mean, they'll watch the movie, I would say, no less than 100 times before it even comes out. So, there's
So why are you a filmmaker?
Why am I a filmmaker? Yeah,
why do you want to do that? That's a lot.
There's days I definitely ask myself the same question. I love storytelling. I think I've realized recently that I'm horrible with names. I'm horrible with faces. But the minute you start telling me your story, I'll remember exactly when we met and where. For some reason, the story has always been a really important thing to me. I read a lot growing up without having a television. But I also think that there's so much power in filmmaking specifically, and in storytelling, yes, but like the audience you reach and the worlds you're able to show. They weren't allowed to have an interracial kiss on television until Star Trek did an interspecial kiss, right? And that's crazy to me. But because of the story and because of the sci-fi-ness of it and because of the interspecial kiss, which was okay, they were able to do interracial kisses. And then that was able to start a whole conversation in this country in terms of race, which hadn't been had before. We have now have shows out where we have had Black presidents and women presidents, and now we're starting to actually reflect that in real life. And I think that that's the importance of story, is that you can ask those questions, the what ifs, in a safe place. I particularly like genre stuff. I like stuff that's sci-fi or comic book or whatever, because I think it's a safer place to ask those questions without people getting all freaked. But I think that's the power of storytelling. Storytelling is empathy. It absolutely is empathy creating. And you can see the worst character, which is what I think is so interesting about these, the Disney movies, or a lot of the movies where they're going back and doing the origin stories of the bad guys, is we are now creating empathy for these horrific characters that we have hated our whole lives from Disney movies. And then we're all of a sudden going, oh, Maleficent's not so bad. Like, oh, she got the
when you find out they were beaten as a child or something, you find out their story too.
And that's the power. Look at Wicked. The Wicked Witch has been the villain. The Green Witch has been the villain in so many things. And now Wicked comes out, and now everyone's like, Team Alphaba, right? I'm green. I'm Team Green, or whatever they call it. And so that's the power of story. We completely rewrote one of the best villains we've ever had, and now she's interesting and complex and nuanced, and we root for her. So I think that's the power story. That's why I want to be a filmmaker, is that I don't have the attention span to sit down and write a novel. I usually like people, and so I'm good with working with people, and I want to change the world through stories.
I love it. It's like adult fairy tales, because there's always a lesson in a good movie. There's always something, and people, I think, like that more than just, an entertaining movie. I laughed through the whole thing, but there's no message, because if there's a message, they walk away holding on to that, and it resonates with them.
And it's even better if it's a message that's hidden by laughter.
There can be in some comedies, but I remember Schindler's List haunted me for weeks. Yeah. Like I couldn't shake it, and that's a good movie. I mean, I always felt like Liam Neeson.
But also, people think of that movie as taking their medicine, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to, I don't know if you guys saw American Fiction, but that movie is really funny, and there's a lot that's being said in that movie that people will laugh their way through, but then at the end go, oh,
Tell us about the is it Chimera?
Chimera Project.
Chimera Project.
You're like our first AD, John. You're keeping us on track. Otherwise,
I
would go like,
I know.
Got to keep our audience entertained. Here you go.
Barbie's another example, the movie that just came out, of like taking your spoonful of sugar with your medicine. The Chimera Project. So the Chimera Project is something that I started with three co-founders over 10 years ago, Shauna Betts and Cheryl Bookout. And the whole point is to change the landscape of the industry, because it's a little unbalanced. When we started it, the number of women in the DGA was about 9%. And the DGA isn't just directors. The DGA is first ADs. The DGA is UPMs. The first AD, like there's a lot of other positions, and it was still only 9% in the entire DGA were women. And so now I think we're up to 12. So there's definitely been strides in the industry, but there needs to be more. And so the idea of the Chimera Project is there's a lot of amazing organizations out there that support women in film, and there's a bunch of other organizations out there. But one of the things that we really wanted to do is find a way just to get the women the money to make their damn films, because historically women are underfunded in terms of making their movies, and for them to get a first movie out is impossible, and then the second movie is beyond impossible. And so we have finishing funds where people can submit their film that's not quite done to us, and then we'll watch it, and then we'll give them the money to get them across the finish line. We'll give them an exhibition, so like a screening thing. And I'm currently in the process of trying to work out distribution pipeline for them so that they can get their movies out. Because like I said earlier, if in fact we are still dealing with men are hired on potential and women are hired on accomplishment, if the women can't get the accomplishment out to begin with, which I was lucky enough to do with all my little shorts, then they're just not going to get the work. They're just not going to be able to prove themselves and what they're capable of. So that's what we're hoping to do. We also do panels, and we do educational workshops. We did an action.
How could women contact you or get involved in this?
Oh, please contact us. Get involved with us. Go to the chimeraproject.org. Yeah, CHIMAERA project.org. Or just find me on social media, and there's a link directly to it. And there's a mailing list that you can sign on. You'll get our newsletter. We only send it out like 2 or 3 times a year, but it's all the different opportunities we have. We have an event coming up with just a screening and networking. We have an action for filmmakers workshop coming up, and we had a screening a couple months ago with Slam Dance. So we have a lot of different things coming up just so people can meet, find their community, and hopefully find support so that we can help.
This is the kind of stuff where, because it's ongoing, and obviously your career is ongoing, several months down the road, we'd love to have you come back on here and do it again. Yeah. And tell us more about, because the Chimera project sounds real interesting.
Thanks, John.
And it's something that should absolutely, even, don't get me wrong, 9% to 12% is actually amazing in a short period of time. And even 12% is too low.
Yeah.
You know, there's your slogan, even 12% is too low.
I think because women, they have children, and some women just want to be a stay-at-home mom, and that's okay. But I think it's even the women don't know how to go about. Like, I would never have known how to go about, I wouldn't have even thought of being a director. But now I've met a woman director, and some young girl in Hollywood might go, you know what? I think I could do that. I think I want to do that. That's why I wanted to also explain what it is, like how involved you have to be.
The good part is we talked about what you did to start. I mean, I'm sure when you were first getting involved in this industry, directing was not even on your radar at that point.
It really wasn't.
It both, like you said, one step led to another, that led to another, that led to another.
And I said last to a lot of things that scared me, which I think is it. And also to Kelly's point, I just never really saw myself in the role, because I never saw myself in the role. I never had worked with a woman. But the other thing that I've realized is it's not even so much. The time it started to actually get into my head was the fact that I had only worked with a certain kind of director. I'm not even talking about gender at this point. I'd only ever worked with mercurial, narcissistic, explosive, unkind, visionary type directors. And I'd always thought to myself, well, I'm not that, or at least I think I'm not. And so I'm definitely not the person for that job. And then I remember working with a director. His name is Jerry Zucker, and he is amazing. He was incredible. He was kind. He was collaborative. He was fun. And everything he was, I thought to myself, well, I kind of think I could be like that. And so working with him, and so it's also, it's not just, the gender of it, although that makes a huge difference because you have to see yourself in it, but there's also like the personality type. And Jerry has had an amazing career, right? From Airplane to Ghost to like all the things that he has done has just been phenomenal. And when I saw, okay, he's him and he's amazing as a human and as a storyteller, and he can do this, then maybe I could be in that seat, and then as I started to do it, and then as I started to see other women doing it, it absolutely secured that thought for me. But it's about it's not even about the women and the men of it, it's about that having more leaders like Jerry, who are not this other group of people that I had worked with who were toxic and horrible and abusive, right? I thought you had to be that to be a director, and you don't. In fact, their movies are good despite them, despite the fact that they're horrible.
Yeah, because I would
Even
think
more
they would
people like
realize.
Jerry, what was that?
Well, I would
Ron
think they would
Miller,
realize
Howard.
you're not going to get a good performance out of someone if you're yelling at them or intimidating them, or you have to provide a nurturing environment in the creative.
And
you know,
same with the crew. And same with the crew,
Yeah.
you know. So if we had more people like Jerry, like the Ron Howards, just in and of itself, it would allow for more people to rise to the top who are that type, who are not the other type, you know. So that's important. I think that's important to say, because there are definitely women directors who are this type. And I don't know whether it's because they feel like they have to be in that position, or whether that's who they are and that's who this industry recognizes as a leader, so they've lifted them up, or what. But we need more of the Jerrys and out there, you know.
Yeah.
So
I think it's about having the skills too. We don't teach leadership skills as much to men or women, and I think it's changing, because I think, you know, we're starting to realize in every industry, not just the acting industry and the movie industry, but in every industry, you're going to get more out of people if you're kinder to them and create a nurturing environment with expectations. But, you know, by yelling and screaming at people all the time is not the way to get them to perform at their best level, whatever that position is. So I'm glad we have a woman, a person. It doesn't even matter that you're a woman. What matters is that you are good at what you do. And putting out good products. And that's what we want in every area, in every industry, is people that are leaders, real leaders. And not
lifting
just
people up as you go, you know. I mean, that's so important.
Yeah. I think that's part of evolving, part of the evolution of the human being.
I love seeing all of John's books behind him.
Yes. We are going to have to do a show on them one day. We are going to do it. He keeps putting it off, but I'm like, we're going to do a show on your
America can, you in America can interview me.
Okay.
Okay.
She's been around since I started the first one.
Yeah, I think I've read them all.
Yeah, I think. Oh,
yeah, I have them all. I don't know. I think I've read them all. Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, let's. We just want to thank you. You were wonderful, and I hope that you also, the people who watch this, I hope that you inspire people. It's not just in your career, but just inspire people to achieve a level that they never thought they could achieve. Yeah. That's what's important.
Yeah, give it a try, even if no one's ever done it that you knew. Try it, and it doesn't matter your gender, or your education, or where you come from.
And you never have to show anyone, right? Like the first couple of times you try it, just do it for you and no one else.
Yep. Give it a shot. And we are really happy that you joined us. But
me too. Thanks for having me,
happy that you are out there in the world, making the world a better place.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
Thank you very, very much. We'll see you again very soon. Take care.
Yes, you will.
Yeah. Thank you, America.
Good night. Bye-bye.
And now let's finish with a disclaimer. All views expressed in this video belong to Kellie Nicholson, John D'Amore, and guests. These discussions do not represent the opinions of any entity whatsoever with which they have been affiliated now or will be in the future. The opinions expressed are solely theirs, and since they are critically thinking human beings, these views are subject to change, subject to revision, and subject to rethinking at any time. These conversations are not meant to be taken as advice and are only for the purpose of entertainment. All statements may be based on hearsay and not necessarily valid proof of any claims in this video. It is not our intention to teach or advise on any topic. Unless otherwise noted, all photos are public domain. Thanks for watching A Slice of Life with Kellie and John.